The wide glass halls of Vierx Prime reflected 1,000 stars, each one carefully placed by ancient builders who believed beauty could calm even the most dangerous minds. The planet was not a world of nature, but of design. Floating platforms drifted slowly in the air like gentle clouds, and bridges of light connected towers that rose far above the surface. Every step Elias Rowan took echoed softly, reminding him that he was very far from Earth. Elias was human. That alone made him different in this place. Around him walked tall, scaled beings with glowing eyes, floating shapes wrapped in soft light, and tall figures with metal woven into their skin. The galaxy had gathered here for diplomacy, but also for judgment. Elias knew that today was not about peace. It was about teaching humanity a lesson. He adjusted the simple dark coat he wore, feeling small in a hall built for giants. He had spoken too freely during the last council meeting. He had questioned a powerful trade empire about their control of weaker systems. He had asked, in a calm human voice, why fairness always seemed to benefit the same few stars. They did not like that. At the center of the great hall floated the council sphere, a glowing circle of shifting light where voices from a dozen species merged into one sound. When it spoke, the floor seemed to hum beneath Elias' feet. "Elias Rowan of Earth," the voice said. "You stand accused of disturbing the balance of interstellar harmony." Elias lifted his head. His heart beat fast, but his face stayed calm. "I asked questions," he said. "That is what humans do." There was a ripple of soft laughter among the gathered beings, not kind laughter. "Curious laughter. Your species is young," the voice replied. "You mistake curiosity for wisdom." Elias wanted to answer, but he stayed quiet. He had learned that sometimes silence spoke louder than argument in this place. The light of the council sphere brightened. "For your disruption, we have chosen a punishment fitting for a human diplomat. You will enter a binding union." A quiet wave of surprise moved through the crowd. Elias frowned. "A union?" "A marriage," the voice said, "to a member of a forgotten people. A bride without political value, without power, without influence." The words were meant to sting. Elias felt them, but not in the way they expected. A figure stepped forward from the shadows at the edge of the hall. She was tall, but not towering like some species. Her form was smooth and strong, covered in dark silver skin that caught the starlight like calm water. A thin veil of soft fabric covered her face, leaving only her eyes visible. Those eyes were deep and quiet, like a night sky before a storm. "This is Calith," the voice said. "Of a people who once claimed strength. Now they are nothing. You will take her. You will represent her. You will carry her name among the stars." Whispers spread through the hall. Elias felt every gaze turn to him, waiting for anger, for shame, for protest. He looked at Calith instead. She stood perfectly still, not nervous, not proud, just present. Elias took a slow breath. "If she is my partner," he said, "then she is not nothing." The hall went silent. The council sphere dimmed slightly. The reaction was not what they expected. Calith's eyes flickered, just for a moment. The binding ceremony was simple and cold, filled with light and sound that meant more to the watching galaxy than to the two standing at the center. Symbols of unity and obligation floated in the air, glowing softly before fading into Elias and Calith's wrists like warm shadows. And just like that, they were connected. Hours later, Elias stood on the edge of a human diplomatic station that orbited a quiet blue star. It was smaller than the grand halls of Vierx Prime, but it felt more real. The walls were metal, not light. The air smelled faintly of recycled water and plants from Earth's gardens. Calith stood beside him, her hands folded calmly. "You don't have to stay near me," Elias said. "This wasn't your choice, it wasn't mine either." Her voice, when she spoke, was soft but clear. "Choice is not always given," she said, "but meaning can be found." He looked at her, surprised. Most species he met spoke through translators or emotion codes. Her words were simple. "Human simple. You learned our language well," he said. "I learned many languages," she replied, "long ago." That caught his attention. They walked through the station together, passing human engineers, scientists, and guards who tried not to stare. Some smiled. Some looked confused. Calith noticed everything but said nothing. Elias showed her the small living space assigned to them. It was plain, 2 rooms, a window that looked out into the stars. "This is home, I guess," he said. Calith stepped to the window and looked out at the endless dark. "My people once lived among the stars," she said quietly. "Not above them, among them." Elias leaned against the wall. "What happened?" She was silent for a moment. We chose not to rule, she said. The galaxy does not reward those who refuse to take. Elias thought of Earth's own history, of wars, of borders, of power gained and lost. Humans don't rule much either, he said. We mostly just survive and try to do better next time. Kalith turned toward him. Her eyes studied him in a way that felt deeper than curiosity. That is why they fear you, she said. Elias laughed softly. Trust me, they don't. They do not fear your strength, she replied. They fear what you change. Over the next few days, they moved through the station together. Elias introduced Kalith to human customs. Food grown in small gardens, music played on old instruments, stories told over shared meals. Kalith watched, listened, and learned. She asked about Earth's oceans, about children, about why humans painted pictures of stars they could not yet reach. Because we believe we will, Elias said. That made her smile just a little. One evening, a group of alien diplomats visited the station. They spoke to Elias, but their eyes always drifted to Kalith. Some whispered, some laughed quietly. One tall being with a face of crystal light leaned close to Elias. So this is the forgotten bride, it said. Does she even know how to stand in a council chamber? Elias felt anger rise, but before he could speak, Kalith stepped forward. I know how to stand, she said. I also know how to listen. Both are rare skills. The crystal-faced diplomat froze. The room went quiet. Elias watched as the mood shifted, not with force. Not with threat, just with presence. Later that night, Elias found Kalith standing alone near the observation deck. You didn't have to do that, he said. I did, she replied. For you and for myself. He nodded. Who were your people? He asked gently. She took a long breath. We were called the Starbound Guard, she said. We protected trade paths, refuge worlds, weak systems. We believed power should serve, not rule. And now, Elias asked. Now we are a story told incorrectly, she said. A warning about becoming nothing. Elias felt something heavy settle in his chest. That's not nothing, he said. That's being better. She looked at him, really looked at him this time. Perhaps, she said. That is why I was given to you. In the days that followed, Elias noticed things others missed. How Kalith always positioned herself near doors, not to block them, but to watch who entered. How she remembered every name she was told. How she understood political discussions faster than some of the oldest diplomats. One night, he found a data archive open on her screen. Ancient star maps, old alliance records, lost treaties. You study a lot, he said. I remember, she corrected. He raised an eyebrow. You lived through this, she closed the screen. My people live long, she said, long enough to see the same mistakes return. Elias sat across from her. They called you worthless, he said. She tilted her head. They called my people forgotten, she replied. That is different, he smiled slightly. Well, they forgot how interesting you are. For the first time, she laughed. It was quiet like wind through leaves, but it felt warm. Far away on Viewership Prime, messages began to move through the hidden channels of the galaxy. Reports that the human and the forgotten bride were not behaving as expected, that they were not ashamed. That they were not silent, that they were becoming something else. Elias stood once more by the window looking out at the stars. Kalith joined him. What do you see? She asked. Paths, he said, to places we haven't been yet. She nodded. So do I, she said. And for the first time in a long while, I believe they are open. Somewhere beyond the reach of the station's light, old powers watched and wondered if they had made a mistake. They had tried to punish a human with a forgotten warrior. Instead, they had brought two worlds together, and neither of them was as harmless as the galaxy believed. The human diplomatic station slowly drifted through space, its lights shining like a small island in an endless dark sea. Inside, life moved with quiet purpose. Scientists studied distant stars. Engineers checked systems that kept the air warm and the gravity steady. Diplomats sent messages across the galaxy, hoping their words could do what fleets once tried to do with force. Elias Rowan walked through the central corridor holding a small data pad. His steps were calm, but his mind was busy. Since Kalith had arrived, everything felt different. People spoke more carefully. Visitors asked more questions. Even the station itself seemed to listen. Kalith walked beside him, her long stride smooth and silent. She no longer wore the veil inside the station. Her face, marked with faint silver lines that told stories of her people, was open and curious. Today, you meet the Cultural Council, Elias said. They help decide how humans share ideas with other worlds, arts, stories, learning programs. Kalith tilted her head. You share your thoughts as gifts. We try, he replied. Sometimes they come back broken, but we keep trying. They entered a wide room filled with light and soft sound. Humans and aliens sat together in small groups, speaking in many languages at once. On the walls, images of distant planets slowly changed, showing forests, oceans, and cities made of glass and stone. The council leader, a human woman with gray hair and bright eyes, stood up when she saw them. Ambassador Rowan, she said warmly, and Calith, we are honored you came. Calith bowed slightly. Elias smiled. They spent hours listening. Artists spoke about painting stars they had never seen. Teachers explained how children from different species learned together through shared games and stories. A small floating being described music that could be felt as light instead of sound. Calith asked questions. Gentle ones, deep ones. What happens when a child does not fit into your way of learning? She asked. We change the way we teach, the teacher replied. Her eyes brightened at that. Later, as they walked back through the station, Elias noticed messages flashing on his pad. What is it? Calith asked. The Galactic Trade Council, he said. They want help. 2 major systems are arguing over resource paths. It could break a lot of alliances. Calith stopped walking. May I see? She asked. He handed her the pad. She studied the data quietly. Maps of star routes, records of old agreements, notes filled with strong words and hidden meaning. This has happened before, she said. Elias blinked. Before? Yes, she replied. Long ago, different names, same problem. She pointed to a faint line on the map. This path. It was once protected by my people. It was meant to be shared, not owned. Elias leaned closer. They don't know that. They forgot, Calith said, or were never told. That evening, Elias sent a message to the Trade Council. He asked for a joint meeting. Not just leaders, but historians, teachers, and young representatives from both systems. The reply came quickly. They were curious. The meeting was held in a shared virtual space, a wide open field under a sky full of moving stars. Beings of many forms appeared as light shapes, solid bodies, or floating symbols. Elias and Calith stood at the center. The arguments began quickly. Voices rose, accusations flew like sharp stones. Calith waited. When there was a pause, she spoke. May I tell you a story? She asked. The room quieted. My people once stood where you stand now, she said. We argued over paths between stars. We believed whoever controlled them controlled the future. Images appeared in the air as she spoke. Ancient ships, old star maps. Worlds glowing with life. We learned that paths are not power, she continued. They are trust. Break that and no fleet can protect what remains. The leaders watched, silent. Elias added softly, humans learned something similar on one world, one ocean, one sky. We share even when we forget we do. The meeting did not end with a signed agreement, but it ended with something else. Listening. Over the next weeks, messages flowed back and forth. The systems agreed to test shared routes. Students from both worlds began joint learning programs. Artists created symbols for cooperation instead of borders. News spread. The worthless bride and the human diplomat were changing trade routes with stories instead of threats. On Viewership Prime, the council's sphere glowed brighter than usual. Reports gathered in silent streams of light. They were meant to fade, one voice said, not influence. Humans are not fading, another replied. They are connecting. Back on the station, Calith spent time in the human gardens. Small trees grew under artificial suns. Flowers from Earth and distant worlds bloomed side by side. A human child approached her one day, holding a small drawing. It showed 2 figures under a sky full of stars. This is you and Elias, the child said. Calith knelt and accepted the picture carefully, as if it were something fragile and powerful at the same time. Thank you, she said. That night she showed it to Elias. I have seen many battles, she told him. This feels more important. Elias smiled. Welcome to humanity. Later, a formal message arrived. The Galactic Council invited Calith to speak as an advisor in the next major assembly. Elias stared at the screen. They don't know who you really are, he said. They see enough, she replied. He hesitated. Are you ready? Calith looked at the stars beyond the window. My people hid for a long time, she said. Perhaps it is time we were seen again, not as warriors, but as voices. The journey to Viewership Prime felt different this time. The station's small shuttle moved through space like a quiet promise instead of a punishment. When they arrived, the great hall was full. More beings than before, more eyes, more attention. Calith walked beside Elias, her posture calm, her presence steady. Whispers followed them. That's her. I come to remember and to help you remember with me. She spoke of old alliances, of systems saved not by power but by patience, of species that survived because someone chose to listen instead of rule. The hall did not laugh this time. Elias watched faces change. Some with surprise, some with thought, some with something close to hope. When the session ended, messages lit up across the hall, requests for shared programs, cultural exchanges, joint councils. As they left, Elias turned to her. They tried to punish me, he said. Calith's eyes softened. They gave you a bridge instead, she replied. Far beyond the walls of Vierx Prime, stars continued to burn in quiet patterns. Old powers shifted. New ideas moved like light through dark space. And somewhere in the deep channels of the galaxy, a simple truth began to spread. The deadliest warrior was not one who conquered worlds. She was one who helped them stand together. The great hall of Vierx Prime did not empty after Calith finished speaking. Beings remained in small clusters, their voices low and thoughtful. Some glowed softly, others shifted colors or shapes, but all shared the same feeling. Something had changed, not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. Elias and Calith walked through the long corridor that led away from the council chamber. The floor beneath their feet shimmered like water, reflecting the stars above the glass ceiling. You made them quiet, Elias said. Calith looked at him. They were already quiet inside. They simply forgot how to listen to it. Messages began to arrive on Elias' wrist display before they even reached their shuttle. Requests for meetings, invitations to visit distant worlds, questions about human schools, gardens, and shared councils. He shook his head slowly. This is getting bigger than I expected. Calith placed a hand gently on the glass wall, watching a small transport ship pass by. Big things often begin as small questions, she said. You asked one. They returned to the human diplomatic station, and life there changed almost overnight. New visitors arrived daily. Some came out of curiosity, some out of doubt, some because they felt something pulling them toward this small place among the stars. The station expanded its meeting rooms. Translators worked without rest. Gardens grew larger, adding plants from more worlds. The air filled with new scents, new sounds, and new ways of speaking. Calith became a quiet center of it all. She did not sit on a high seat or wear symbols of power. She walked among people. She listened to engineers talk about gravity systems. She listened to children explain their games. She listened to leaders argue and then pause, unsure why they felt the need to argue at all. One day, a delegation from a strong trading empire arrived. Their ships were large and shining, designed to impress. Their leader, a tall being with golden skin and sharp, careful movements, requested a private meeting. Elias and Calith sat across from them in a simple room with a small table and 2 cups of warm tea grown in the station's gardens. You are changing the flow of the galaxy, the leader said. Trade routes, cultural ties, influence. Calith lifted her cup and took a slow sip. Flow changes naturally, she said. Rivers do not ask permission to move around stones. The leader studied her. Rivers can also flood. Elias leaned forward. That's why we build bridges instead of walls. The leader was silent for a long moment. We built walls, they finally said. They kept us safe, Calith nodded. For a time. The meeting ended without a deal, but not without thought. The leader left the station slower than they arrived. Later that evening, Elias found Calith in the garden. She stood beneath a tree from earth that glowed softly under the artificial sun. Its leaves moved gently in the controlled air. Do you ever get tired? He asked. She considered the question. I get old, she said. But not tired, he smiled. That's not what I meant. She turned toward him. I have carried my people's story for a very long time. Sharing it makes it lighter. Across the galaxy, change moved quietly. Schools on distant planets began teaching human languages. Human children learned about worlds made of crystal, light, and sound. Joint councils formed in small systems first, then larger ones. Not everyone was happy. On a distant world built around a dying star, a group of powerful leaders gathered. They had ruled their region of space for generations. Their strength came from control. Their stability came from fear of losing it. They are weakening the old order, one said, the human and the starbound. They are making our allies question us, another replied. A third voice, low and calm, spoke. They are making people think. The room fell silent. Back on the station, Elias noticed Calith growing more thoughtful. She spent long hours studying star maps and old records. One night he found her looking at a faded image of a symbol shaped like a circle and a line. "My people used this mark," she said. "It meant balance." "Why look at it now?" he asked. "Because balance is being tested," she replied. The station received a message from a distant system. Two worlds once peaceful were drifting apart, not in anger, in silence. Trade had slowed, cultural exchange had stopped. No one could say why. Elias and Caliph traveled there together. The system was beautiful. Twin planets circled a bright blue star, their skies often reflecting each other's light. But when they arrived, they felt the distance between the people who lived there. On the first world, leaders spoke of self-reliance. On the second, they spoke of pride. Both spoke of safety. Neither spoke of trust. Caliph asked to walk among the people. She visited markets, schools, homes. She listened to stories of grandparents who once traveled between worlds freely, of shared festivals that no longer happened. That evening, Elias and Caliph stood on a bridge that floated between two towers, watching the twin planets in the sky. "They're not angry," Elias said. "They're afraid of losing themselves." Caliph nodded. "So were my people. That is how hiding begins." They organized a simple event, not a council, not a treaty, a shared night of stories. People from both worlds gathered in a wide open field under the stars. Elders told old tales. Children played games from both cultures. Musicians shared sounds that blended in strange and beautiful ways. No agreements were signed. But when Elias and Caliph left, trade ships followed them from both planets, traveling side by side. News of this spread faster than any official report. The phrase human-style diplomacy began appearing in messages across the galaxy. Caliph laughed softly when Elias told her. "I like the sound of that," he said. "It is not yours alone," she replied. "It is ours." As their influence grew, so did attention from those who wanted to stop it. Not with force, with rules. A new galactic proposal appeared. It suggested limiting who could speak in major councils. Only long-standing powers, only recognized empires. Elias read the message twice. "They're trying to close the door," he said. Caliph's expression did not change. "Then we remind them why it was opened," she said. They prepared carefully. They did not send one message. They sent many. Teachers wrote about shared classrooms. Traders wrote about peaceful routes. Children sent drawings of stars and friends from other worlds. By the time the council gathered to vote, the hall was filled not just with leaders, but with representatives of communities. Artists, farmers, engineers, students. The proposal was not rejected loudly. It simply faded. After the session, Elias and Caliph stood together in a quiet corner of the hall. "They wanted to limit voices," Elias said. "You gave them 1,000 more." Caliph looked at the ceiling where stars slowly moved in gentle patterns. "My people once believed the strongest shield was silence," she said. "I now believe it is connection." One night back on the station, Caliph showed Elias a private message. It came from a hidden group of Starbound Guard survivors, scattered across the galaxy, watching. "They are coming out of hiding," she said. Elias felt a quiet excitement. "What will they do?" he asked. "They will teach," she replied, "as you did as we did." The station welcomed them when they arrived. Not as warriors, as guides, historians, mediators. Together, humans and Starbound began creating something new. A network of shared knowledge and support that crossed borders and systems. It had no flag. No fleet. Only open channels and open doors. Far away, the old powers watched this growing web of connection and felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Elias and Caliph stood once more by the window, looking out at the stars. "Do you ever miss being hidden?" Elias asked. Caliph thought for a long moment. "No," she said. "I miss being understood, and now I am," he smiled. "You know," he said, "they still think you're the deadliest warrior in the galaxy." She smiled back. "Perhaps I am," she said softly, "just not in the way they expected." Beyond them, the galaxy continued to shift. Not with the movement of fleets, not with the rise and fall of empires, but with conversations, with shared meals, with stories told under unfamiliar stars. And somewhere in that quiet change, a new kind of strength was being born. The galaxy did not change all at once. It never did. Change moved like light through deep space, slow but steady, touching one system at a time. Elias and Caliph watched it happen from the quiet place they had come to call home. The human diplomatic station now looked different. New sections had been added, not made of metal alone, but of crystal living plants and soft light shaped by starbound designs. It had become a meeting place not owned by any single world. Ships from many systems docked there every day, carrying people who once would never have spoken to each other. Elias walked through a wide open hall where voices mixed like gentle music. A group of children from 3 species sat on the floor drawing star maps together. Nearby, an engineer from a heavy-gravity world laughed with a floating being made of light as they tried to solve a shared problem. Kalith stood near a tall window, watching it all with calm eyes. "They are building something," she said. "So are you," Elias replied. She turned to him. "So are you." A message arrived from Viewership Prime. The Council Sphere requested their presence for a final assembly. Not to judge, not to test, to recognize. The journey there felt lighter than the first time. Elias remembered how small he had felt walking into the Great Hall as a punished diplomat. Now he walked beside Kalith as a partner in something much larger than either of them. The hall was full, more full than it had ever been. Not just leaders and officials, but representatives of many worlds. Some wore simple clothing. Some carried symbols of their cultures. Some brought nothing but themselves. The council sphere glowed softly, not bright and cold as before, but warm like a quiet star. "Elias Rowan of Earth," the voice said. "Kalith of the Starbund Guard, you were joined here as a lesson. You return as an example." The room grew silent. "You have helped form what many now call the Open Charter," the voice continued. "A network of shared learning, trade, and cultural exchange that does not belong to any empire. It belongs to all who choose to take part." Elias felt a small knot in his chest. He had never planned for this. He had only asked questions. Kalith stepped forward. "My people once believed guarding the galaxy meant standing between danger and the weak," she said. "Now we believe it means standing between fear and understanding." The council sphere pulsed gently. "Do you accept the role of stewards of this charter?" the voice asked. Elias looked at Kalith. She looked back. They nodded together. The hall did not cheer. It did something quieter. It breathed out as if a long-held tension had finally been released. After the assembly, they walked through the outer gardens of Viewership Prime. Real plants grew there, under a sky open to space. Soft winds carried the scent of flowers from 100 worlds. "Do you ever think about how this started?" Elias asked. "With a punishment." Kalith smiled faintly. "Some seeds are planted with poor intentions. They can still grow into something good." Their lives became filled with travel. They visited water worlds where cities floated like gentle islands. They walked on desert planets where people carved homes into glowing stone. They sat in quiet rooms on silent moons where beings spoke through light instead of sound. Everywhere they went, they listened. The Starbund Guard, once hidden, now walked openly again, not in armor but in simple robes marked with the old symbol of balance. They taught history. They helped settle small disputes. They guided new councils on young worlds. Humans did the same. Teachers, artists, engineers, and farmers traveled alongside them, sharing knowledge and learning in return. One day, on a small green world near the edge of known space, Elias and Kalith attended a simple celebration. 2 systems that had once been rivals were opening their first shared school. A young student asked Kalith a question. "Are you really a warrior?" the child asked. Kalith thought for a moment. "I was trained to protect," she said. "Now I protect in a different way." The child nodded as if that made perfect sense. That night, Elias and Kalith stood on a hill watching the sky. 2 moons crossed paths slowly above them. "Do you miss who you were?" Elias asked. Kalith considered the question carefully. "I carry who I was," she said. "But I am glad for who I am now." Elias smiled. "Me too." Far away, the old powers still existed. Some joined the Open Charter, some stayed apart, but even those who stayed apart felt its presence. Trade flowed more freely. Information traveled faster. People asked more questions. Fear did not vanish, but it no longer stood alone. One quiet evening back on the station, Elias found a small box outside their living space. Inside were letters, drawings, and small gifts from across the galaxy. A piece of stone shaped like a star. A ribbon made of living light. A book written in 3 languages at once. Kalith held one of the letters. It was from a young leader on a distant world. It read, "You showed us that we do not have to become strong by becoming hard. We can become strong by becoming open." She closed the box gently. "They see you as a symbol," Elias said. "They see us," she replied. Time passed, slowly, kindly. The Open Charter became a normal part of galactic life. New generations grew up with shared schools, shared stories, and shared maps of the stars. The idea that one world could stand alone began to feel old and small. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Elias and Calith returned to the great hall of Vierx Prime. Not for a council, not for a ceremony, just to walk. They stood in the place where they had once been joined by force and misunderstanding. "It feels different," Elias said. "It is different," Calith replied. "So are we." A group of young diplomats passed by, one human, one from a crystal world, one made of soft light. They spoke excitedly about a joint project to build a shared station near an unexplored star cluster. Elias watched them go. "That's the future," he said. Calith nodded. "Yes, and it will be better than our past." Later, as they prepared to leave, the council sphere spoke one last time, not to the hall, but quietly to them. "You were meant to be a lesson in humility," it said. "Instead, you became a lesson in possibility." Elias felt a warmth in his chest. On their return journey, the stars outside the shuttle window seemed brighter than before. "What do you think they will remember about you?" Elias asked. Calith looked out at the endless sky. "They will remember that I was given as a punishment," she said. "And that I chose to become a bridge," he smiled. "They'll remember you as the deadliest warrior in the galaxy," she laughed softly. "Let them." They returned to their station, to their quiet home among the stars. Life continued. Messages arrived. Visitors came and went. The galaxy kept turning, but something had changed, deep and lasting. Once, power had been measured in fleets and borders. Now it was measured in open doors and shared skies. Elias and Calith stood together by the window, watching a new station being built in the distance. Its design mixed human metal, starbound balance symbols, and the soft light of many worlds. "What do you see?" Calith asked. Elias thought for a moment. "I see a place where no one is forgotten," he said. She nodded. "So do I, and far across the stars, stories began to spread. Not of battles, not of conquest, but of a human who asked a simple question and a warrior who chose to answer it with hope. The galaxy listened, and this time it did not forget.